So now, my dear friends, what I'd like to do is I'd like to focus our attention on other aspects of this wonderful Criterion collection set, The Red Balloon and Other Stories, 5 films by Albert Lamorisse. And so we've talked a little bit about each of the films, the 5 films, but now I'd like to focus on the packaging and the discs and the presentation themselves. And in order to do that, let me first show you this great Digipack packaging here, which is the cardboard casing, the outer shell, which is right here, and then the inner shell. And such inner shell holds the discs themselves. And when we open the compartment, we see the 2 discs and that wonderful detail stowaway in the sky. So we have the red disc and the blue disc. The red disc is described as being Blu-ray disc number 1. And the blue disc is described as being Blu-ray disc number 2. And the red disc, according to this, holds the red balloon, white mane, and Bim the Little Donkey. And Blu-ray disc number 2 holds Stowaway in the Sky and Circus Angel. So let me first put in the red disc into the player right now. And so I have now Blu-ray disc 1, which is the red disc, in the machine right now. And again, I apologize for my poor YouTube video making presentation skills. I'm very much lacking in that department, and indeed other departments in my YouTube life, but I hope you can forgive me. But yes, this is what the Blu-ray menu looks like when you put in disc number 1. It's a scene which is from the Red Balloon, and it says Blu-ray 1, the Red Balloon, white mane, and Bim the Little Donkey. And just to let you know about the Red Balloon, you press it and it gives you the option to watch the film with chapters. For the film White Mane, please note it has original French audio or English audio, and I quote here the Criterion menu when it says, White Mane is presented with the original French soundtrack and an English narration recorded by actor Peter Strauss. And then for Bim the Little Donkey, it says original French version and US version. And I quote the Criterion menu when it says, Bim the Little Donkey is presented in the original French version and in a shortened version with an English narration. The US release was produced by film distributor and filmmaker Saul J. Terrell for Janus Films. I should say that the versions, the different versions that are made available, I think it's a really lovely option to have. I mean, I've seen the films in their original French versions were available, and then the English versions were available. And we'll also talk about this when we get to the second Blu-ray disc as well. It's a lovely option, and to watch the films, I think, in the with the English audio option or watching in the French audio option, I think either way, I think is quite a treat indeed. There's a type of, again, magical quality, and to be enveloped into the world is a lovely. So to have the availability of these options where we can is a real wonder indeed. Let me, while we're at Blu-ray number 1, let me just point your attention to the booklet, which is what I have here, because on page 23, it says about the masters, and I quote, The Red Balloon, Bim the Little Donkey, White Mane, and Circus Angel are presented in their original aspect ratio of 1.37 to 1, and Stowaway in the Sky is presented in its original aspect ratio of 2.35 to 1. These new digital masters were created from the 35mm original camera negatives, which were scanned in 4K resolution at Eclair Classics in Paris and approved by Pascal Lamorisse. The original monaural soundtracks were remastered from the 35mm optical soundtrack negatives. And so we will talk about Blu-ray disc number 2 and the feature films there when we get to that. But staying with Blu-ray disc number 1 for a moment, and these 3 shorter films, they look and sound magnificent. And I've seen the works a number of times, in particular the Red Balloon. I've seen this so many times, and I think the colors are vibrant and sharp and dynamic, but also there's a type of fidelity to what I'm used to seeing when I watched this film before. So I love this. And then the black and white photography, as we see in the other 2 films, it's captured and rendered with a type of a lovely, sensitive delineation that feels again it's preserving the context of the films in which they're made, but also feeling very fresh and vibrant. So I just love these presentations. They look and sound awesome, absolutely awesome. So well done to everyone who was involved in these restorations. This is a true feat and a brilliant, brilliant rendering. I just very quick detail, just to let you know. Again, the films are not presented necessarily in chronological order in terms of they're made. Otherwise, if that were the case, then we would start with Bim the Little Donkey. We don't in the context of the order in which they appear on the menu, and that's okay. We start with the Red Balloon, then White Mane, then Bim the Little Donkey. Just again, in case you're interested, the booklet has them in the order of on page 2 to 3 we have the Red Balloon, and then on pages 4 to 5 we have Bim the Little Donkey, and then 6 to 7 we have White Mane, and then Stowaway in the Sky and Circus Angel. So in fact the order as they appear in the booklet, or as they're described in the booklet, is the Red Balloon, Bim the Little Donkey, then White Mane, then Stowaway in the Sky, then Circus Angel. Whereas here, the menu would have it such that the order is the Red Balloon, then White Mane, then Bim the Little Donkey, and then the other disc would have Stowaway in the Sky and Circus Angel. It's a very minor point. I don't think it changes the calculus in any way at the end of the day, so no need to worry about that. But just keep that in mind. Also, incidentally, I would say that the outer shell, the back, it actually has a description of the films here. And again, sorry for the poor the inability to focus here. I apologize. Oh, there we go. But maybe you can see that it says the Red Balloon, and it says Bim the Little Donkey, then White Mane, then Stowaway in the Sky, then Circus Angel. So here, this order as it appears on the back of the casing also seems to be reflective of the order of the films as they appear in the booklet, but it's almost, but not quite the same as they appear, at least in Blu-ray disc number 1. But again, at the end of the day, it doesn't change a thing, because we still get the films and we still get the wonderful presentations of these films as they appear here. Now, before we move on to Blu-ray disc 2, I should mention that again, the supplements are not linked to the films directly, but they are linked to the Blu-ray disc. So Blu-ray disc 1 has its own set of supplements, and then Blu-ray disc 2 has its own set of supplements. So let's turn to the supplements as we have them here. First up is Pascal Lamorisse, and if we press this, this is it says here, in this interview conducted for the Criterion Collection in Paris in 2023, Pascal Lamorisse, the son of Albert Lamorisse, discusses his father's work and approach to filmmaking, as well as his own experiences on several of his films. So this is the one-on-one discussion with son Pascal Lamorisse. This is approximately 23 minutes. And this is great because it does go into some descriptions of each of the films that is mentioned here, as well as some others that aren't included as part of this set. So it's great to get a sense of, let's say, the biographical background of Albert Lamorisse, again, from the perspective of Pascal Lamorisse, who's very much part of this world, as we know, having been featured in very prominently in some of the works themselves. So as a young boy. And we also get some information about the relationship, or say other filmmakers in the orbit of Albert Lamorisse, such as Charles Chaplin and also other artists and authors and great thinkers and philosophers and admirers. And so we get some information about the relationship between Lamorisse and Jacques Prévert, which led to their collaboration very prominently so in a work which is called Bim the Little Donkey. And then talking to about other works, the film White Mane, Alain Emery, and also how this is a family affair, and then also showcases how other films like The Red Balloon having the involvement of members of the Lamorisse family, including Pascal Lamorisse, who's very much featured quite prominently in the film like Red Balloon, and also in the Stowaway in the Sky feature film. Which is from Blu-ray disc 2, and he describes it here. Pascal Lamorisse describes that film as a type of Indiana Jones adventure before the Indiana Jones films, which I think is such a lovely way of describing it. And that had a large crew, and that wasn't quite what they were used to in terms of how the other films were made prior to this, etc. And then also discussing the fifth film in this series, Circus Angel, or as it's known in French, Fifi la Plume. And so he describes, Pascal Lamorisse does, the significance of the French title Fifi La Plume and how it has an interesting yet unique quality in the context of Albert Lamorisse's filmography. So this is a great 2023 discussion with Pascal Lamorisse, it is talking, I think, about the whole range of films in the set. So not just the red disc films, but also the blue disc films. But that's okay. So maybe it could be seen to be a kind of comprehensive supplement, and in that way, maybe one can watch all the films first and then bring one's attention to this great discussion with Pascal Lamorisse. Again, this is approximately 23 minutes. That's not all, because then we have Albert Lamorisse, 1957, and it's described as the following segment from the French television program Pile ou Face features director Albert Lamorisse discussing the red balloon, white mane, and his philosophy of filmmaking with a group of young students. This is approximately 8 minutes. This is really interesting because we have Albert Lamorisse and the host of the program on one side, and a group of students, young children, I think ranging in age, sitting on the other side. And it's an interesting dialogue. I must admit, the host in particular has an interesting, approach to this. It's on the one hand, but then the children are really inviting a lot of very profound questions and asking about interpretation, and maybe the film's white mane, red balloon could be interpreted in one way. Maybe they're interpreted like dream logic, or the ambiguity of, say, how some of the films end. And maybe some of the children ask, well, maybe maybe the films are better if we're not told what they mean, which I think is such a profound statement. Absolutely love it, and it's a great way, a great type of maybe advice of how to approach films like those of Albert Lamorisse. This is wonderful, absolutely wonderful in that way. So this is from 1957, and you actually hear and see Albert Lamorisse and his discussion about his work. So again, in the context of red balloon and white mane specifically. So please check this out if you can. It's approximately 8 minutes. And then Albert Lamorisse, 1959. This is approximately 7 minutes, and it's described as, and I quote, "In this excerpt from the French television program Le Criterion du Film, director Albert Lamorisse is interviewed in the studio about the red balloon, white mane, and his path to filmmaking." And here it's another great, this is a one-on-one interview with him, and it's talking about how to view and interpret some of these works. I love for example, I love the element that's introduced by Lamorisse in his comments about how cruelty of life, how life is cruel. And also the question leads into how closely linked are these films to Lamorisse's own, say, memories and childhood dynamics and feelings, etc. So I think that's allowing for this idea of the films as fantasy on the one hand, but also allowing for an understanding of how there's a lot of intimate and family connections with these films. So it's another great one, and Albert Lamorisse is again featured as the artist here. So please check this out as well. This is approximately 7 minutes. And that rounds out what we have in terms of the supplements, in terms of the Red Balloon, White Mane, and Beam the Little Donkey. Now let us turn our attention to Blu-ray disc number 2. And so now I have the second Blu-ray disc 2, in the machine here, and it says Blu-ray 2, Stowaway in the Sky, Circus Angel. And it has Stowaway in the Sky, Circus Angel, and then a supplement, or something on the menu which is called My Father Was a Red Balloon, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But first, let's point to the films themselves. First of all, Stowaway in the Sky, which is the first of the feature-length films here, and it says original French audio and English audio, and it's described as, and I quote, "Stowaway in the Sky is presented with the original French soundtrack and an English soundtrack narrated by actor Jack Lemmon." And so there's a very lovely connection between this work and Jack Lemmon, and one of such connections being expressed in the English audio. So you have your chance of watching the film either with the French language or the English audio provided by Jack Lemmon. So that's really great. I would recommend both if you can. It's a wonderful way of experiencing the film. Then Circus Angel, also original French audio and English audio, and it says, and I quote, Circus Angel is presented with the original French soundtrack and an English dubbed soundtrack created for Janus Films. And again, that's the same thing. You have your choice of experiencing it in the French language or the English dub track. And I think either choice is a great way to engage into the film. I've seen the film a number of times now with both audio options or either audio option available, and I've enjoyed every time I've watched it. So please check those out if you can. Now, again, like I did with the Blu-ray disc number 1, let me just point once again to the booklet. And it said about the masters on page 23, of the booklet, 23. It says about the masters, and I quote, "The Red Balloon, Bim the Little Donkey, White Mane, and Circus Angel are presented in their original aspect ratio of 1.37 to 1, and Stowaway in the Sky is presented in its original aspect ratio of 2.35 to 1. These new digital masters were created from the 35mm original camera negatives, which were scanned in 4K resolution at Eclair Classics in Paris and approved by Pascal Lamorisse. The original monaural soundtracks were remastered from the 35mm optical soundtrack negatives." These look great. These sound great. Again, I admit I'm very limited in terms of my experience with these films. I've never seen them in the theater. I've never had the great fortune of watching them in the theater, so a movie theater experience. So I don't know. My exposure to these films is very limited, but based on my own subjective experience with them and my engagement with them, I think the set is great and they look and sound fantastic. And that includes Stowaway in the Sky and Circus Angel in their own way. And the photography is well represented and respected, and it's a fantastic expression of these films in my opinion. So well worth checking out if you haven't already. A great set. And a great presentation of the films. And while we're on Blu-ray disc number 2, the blue Blu-ray, we have the supplement. It's one supplement, but it's a long one. It's almost 50 minutes. And this is called in English, "My Father Was a Red Balloon." And it's, again, pardon me for my poor French pronunciation, but it's referred to in French as "Mon père était un ballon rouge, conte de la vie d'Albert Lamorisse." And so this is described as being, from 2008. And I quote, "In this 2008 documentary, directed by Chloé Sciallom, Pascal Lamorisse recounts to his young daughter, Lisa, his experiences with his father, Albert Lamorisse, and how he influenced his own interest in film and photography." So this is just shy of an hour, so about 50 minutes. And it's a lovely portrait of, again, of parent and child. This time, Pascal and Lisa, where Pascal is now talking to Lisa about his relationship with his own father, her grandfather, Albert Lamorisse. So very interesting. And they go to certain locations. There's a moment where they try to film a location involved with, I understand, the red balloon. It doesn't quite go according to plan, so it's an interesting way in which we're showing and we're seeing the relationship and how the Pascal is describing the works, and we see books like a gift from Jacques Prévert and a little inscription or writing in there that was written to Albert Lamorisse, and there's a discussion of some films that maybe were not released, some films that, or some film projects that aren't part of the, say, Criterion release overall, although there's also a discussion of the films that are included here, such as Circus Angel with the Red Balloon, White Mane, etc. There's also a great moment where there is a film. There's a film premiere or a film event involving a very special filmmaker, Ho Xiaoxian, and that relationship between the film of Ho Xiaoxian and the life of Albert Lamorisse. And there's this really awesome moment where we see Pascal Lamorisse and Lisa there, and Ho Xiaoxian is present, and there's this interesting dialogue between Lisa on the one hand and one of the actors of the film on the other that's being mentioned there. So it's a great moment. This is, I think, a great type of portrait of, again, the feeling of family, I think, is very important here, and it's reminding us too about how the family connections in the works of Albert Lamorisse are really important to keep in mind, and that's part of the reason why they are so they are so wonderful as they are, because they are so personal. I think I forgot to mention it elsewhere, but it was mentioned, I think, in the 2023 interview with Pascal Lamorisse about how Albert Lamorisse was kind of was around the same time as the French New Wave, 1950s, 1960s, but he's also described by Pascal Lamorisse as almost standing on his own outside of the French New Wave dynamic. I mean, he's forging his path of cinema that's all his own, that's very personal, and that's so almost wonderfully, stubbornly his own, which I think is the great artistic drive on display. And so there are techniques that are very cinematically filled with a lot of craft and skill, of course, technically proficient. At the same time, there's a way in which these films could be said to be part of the French New Wave, or maybe parallel to or separate from the French New Wave. And in fact, maybe at the end of the day, what becomes more apparent is that they are indeed films of Albert Lamorisse, because of the voice and style that he brings, both in terms of his approach and aesthetic, as well as his own personal touch. So. And that's shown through in the other supplement as well as in this documentary, My Father Was a Red Balloon. And I love that quote, because this is in reference to a point that's mentioned by Pascal Lamorisse's daughter Lisa here, about because it's her father that's in this famous film as a young boy, The Red Balloon, that's world famous, that got all these accolades, awards, etc. It's so famous even now. And so it's interesting to get her interpretation about what the red balloon meant, and what it stood in for, and who it was meant to stand in for, etc. And so her interpretation is mentioned here, which is an allusion, which I think is referenced in the very title that's used for this documentary. So very cool indeed. So please check this out if you can. Again, more insight into the world of Albert Lamorisse through the viewpoint of Pascal Lamorisse and daughter Lisa. So My Father Was a Red Balloon. And so that rounds out the discussion of Blu-ray disc number 2. And to round out this discussion, I should point your attention to this wonderful booklet. It's a staple booklet, and I've referred to a little bit before already, but it's great. It has little write-ups on each of the films, so a little synopsis on each of the films, plus casting credits and technical information. So please check those pages out if you can. And then it's graced with a great comprehensive essay, by David Cairns, called Head in the Clouds. So, I love this essay so much. It's long, it's robust, it's well written, and it goes into some great details about each of the films, and also touches upon Albert Lamorisse's career and life and biography and filmography overall. So, again, my strong recommendation is to watch all of the films first. So, Beam the Little Donkey, White Mane, Red Balloon, Stowaway in the Sky, and Circus Angel. So watch all of them first. And after you've seen them through at least once, then you can read this great essay. Again, it's called Head in the Clouds, and it begins on pages 12 and 13 of the booklet. And then we've got wonderful adornments of pictures and stills from each of the films. It's really great. Just note too about, I love this artwork. It has a pastiche style, which I think is wonderful. Just a quick note about the art. Art director Sarah Habibi, Eric Skillman, designer F. Ron Miller, art production coordinator William Brazy, and art assistant Julie Sussman. And so this is the great Blu-ray, 2-disc Blu-ray release of The Red Balloon and Other Stories, 5 films by Albert Lamorisse. So as I'm putting the booklet back into the inner compartment of this digipack packaging, and then now putting the inner compartment back into the outer compartment shell, I put that there and say once again that I think this is a great release. It's a great spine number 1200. a lot of films. It would have been great if it had maybe some more supplements. I would have welcomed more supplements had they been made available. That would have been awesome. Commentary tracks. I'm always up for commentary tracks. It's too bad that there aren't any commentary tracks for this, as far as I can tell. But again, that's okay. We still have the films to welcome us with this great set. So the films are they're such great treasures, and so I can't recommend this enough. I really hope that you get a chance to see one or more of these films, and maybe get the set and watch and enjoy this world of Albert Lamorisse as presented in this. And I certainly did, and I know I will continue to do so thanks to this great Criterion release. And this is The Red Balloon and Other Stories, 5 films by Albert Lamorisse. So, my dear friends, that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well. And please keep on watching a lot of great movies, such as the films by Albert Lamorisse, such as the other films in the Criterion collection, and beyond. So until the next video, my dear friends, stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.